opportunity. Actually, this forum is becoming one of the main forums, annual forums regionally, and congratulations with this. About infrastructure and about region, I would like to first stop at the regional view. If you look at Trans-Caspian corridor, which was actually mentioned by Mr. Bozumbayev, which is developing very fastly, and we are seeing quite interesting kind of developments in this region in terms of Trans-Caspian development and middle corridor. If you look at the region itself of the Trans-Caspian, Central Asia and Caucasus, it's not a small part of the world. If you look at it as a united economic region, it's 7th in the world by territory. Of course, Kazakhstan being number 1 by far, which is on its own in 9th in the world. By population, it's 100 million people. By agricultural land, it's 4th in the world. By critical minerals, it's amongst the top 5 in the world. By energy, oil and gas, it's also amongst the top 10 in the world, top 7 in the world. So it is a quite interesting, amazing investment opportunity for you. And not only for you, but also for other investors around the world. How do you maximize the value of this wealth? So it's a super wealthy region. How do you maximize the value of the wealth? You maximize the value of the wealth by diversifying investor base. As many investors you have, as many potential money flow you have, as many potential new technologies you can attract, that's how you diversify the value of this wealth. If you depend only on one corridor, if you depend only on one investor, if you depend only on one direction, that's where the value maximization doesn't happen. So that's why I believe that developing all logistical directions towards east, north, south, as well as to the west is only beneficial for the region. It's a maximum benefit that these countries can take from its wealth only through diversification. I want to focus a little bit on the middle corridor because as an ex-Prime Minister of Georgia, I was very much involved in the negotiations of the middle corridor. It has much bigger potential than it's doing now. Its growth is amazing, really. It's doubling, but it has a much bigger potential to play a key role. Why? Because right now it has a split amongst different countries, different companies, Trans-Caspian, Kazakh Railway, ports, and so on and so on. What is the way forward? I believe the way forward is to have one tariff and the initial split of the tariffs amongst all key players of the corridor. This is and one operator. If the corridor has a one operator, then the corridor becomes attractive, then the corridor becomes competitive. This is when we will be able to see much more companies from the West, from Europe and United States and others investing in the region and bringing new technologies. Second, also very important advice that I would like to have given to myself when I was Prime Minister back then is to create some kind of common infrastructure fund for the region, because there are very specific infrastructure projects that are very specific for the region, for the Trans-Caspian, and countries themselves co-investing with institutions like EBRD and private sector should be beneficial for the middle corridor. So kind of creating middle corridor infrastructure fund dedicated to this corridor only. This includes rolling stock, which is such a shortage in our corridor. This includes port rehabilitations on the Caspian or new shipments across the Caspian. So there are many projects which can be developed very successfully that can open up the middle corridor going forward. But for that, I believe that dedicated infrastructure fund where all participant countries are participating, all regional countries are participating, plus where we have additional financing come from private sector as well as international financial institutions can be super beneficial for the corridor going forward. Now, another topic that I would like to focus on is what should be the way for the country to attract private investment in infrastructure, which is the most difficult. Infrastructure is a long-term, difficult project. Countries invest in them, governments invest in them, international financial institutions invest in them. Based on our experience as a company, as Reformatics, we have been advising actually way more than 20 countries. One of the best ways to attract private capital in infrastructure is PPP, which I don't like this anymore, by the way. It's kind of outdated term, and in many developing countries, it's been misused for different reasons. So, like, let's call it strategic partnership model. Okay, strategic partnership model, which I believe we did it actually in Georgia a couple of times, and I believe this can be the best way to go forward. So what we did, especially for large energy projects, is that government creates a company, and government makes sure that this company gets all the licenses, permits, land, connections that it needs to build the new infrastructure. It invests only for the first few months. It creates value out of zero, and then goes to private sector to attract private capital, and saying that government is ready to sell minimum 55 to 51% of the project, but it will be on a tender base. Whoever will invest more will get the project based on everything, and in the end, government has also an alternative, that the private sector will buy the government out after 5 years once all the risks of the construction is gone. And with this formula of buying out, the government has extra money to invest in new projects. So I call it kind of revolving infrastructure fund for the government, where government starts from zero, new infrastructure projects. Government develops these projects for the first 6-9 months. This is the period which are most hated by private sector. This is the period which are for private sectors the most difficult. Get all the licenses, get all the permits, get land, get over all the bureaucracy. And this is the easiest for government. So the idea is to split where government is much more easy for government to do, let government do it. Whatever is much better and more efficient for private sector to do, and it's construction, let private sector to do that. So by diversifying, by splitting the job into two, we have the formula where I believe, and it was done in many countries already, I believe that this can be one of the best formulas going forward to attract private capital into strategic projects, strategic infrastructure projects in our region, in any developing country section. And finally, just my final remark is about infrastructure fund in general. The biggest and best potential investors for infrastructure funds, infrastructure projects are pension funds. This is a logical kind of connection. Pension funds have a long money, infrastructure has a long payout with a relatively low risks, and this is where I believe developing countries should be looking at. How do we create system where we bring long and relatively cheap money, pension funds money from Western countries to the region? This is something that I would like to brainstorm with my colleagues going forward, and that would be one of the biggest achievements, because we are talking about $60 trillion of pension funds which haven't been utilized by this region yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilauri. I think Jad can share or discuss with you the attraction of pension funds into infrastructure projects. As far as I know, the largest group of investors into Brookfield funds are the Canadian pension funds, right? So you can maybe talk about the appetite for risk